Anyway, we better go on. Okay, so now you can smell like Jane Goodall, the legendary primate scientist, primatologist. And yes, it was clickbait, and I thought maybe you'd smell like a gorilla, a lowland gorilla. Anyway, no, that's not the case. She likes lilies of the valley, but what is the case is she it'll smell like lilies of the valley. It'd be very nice. But the point is that Unilever developed this product to go direct to her supporters to help her support her foundation, and now it's going to be available in Whole Foods and some other places. You might like it. The point is that we're now developing products from back to forward. We have a group of consumers, and we can generate products that appeal to those consumers in a microculture. Rather than create a brand, we have an association, we have an affinity, and we can create a product that fits the affinity and also smells good. Something like that. Let's see if I've got 16 hours. Let's see if I've got a picture of. No, the pictures went away. Okay, and this was also picked up in this article. How market is changing, the new soul of branding. And they were talking about Billy, a direct-to-consumer brand, launched Project Bodyhair to spotlight women's razor ads and show airbrushed legs and not a follicle of hair. Apparently, the women's razor ads they were retouched, let's just say. And we're losing our edge of our articles here, and it doesn't seem to matter what we do. Oh, I got to go this way, not the other way. There we go. High tech, eh? Okay, and so they basically said you can look any way you like and be beautiful. You might want to ask your significant partner. I think there's a lot of truth in it, to be honest. And it doesn't clog the shower if you mostly keep it attached. But the point is, brands don't always get to make the rules anymore. And so here we have Jim Stengel, who for years made a lot of hay with the idea of legacy brands, but Kraft seems to be paying the price for listening to Jim. Hi out there, Jim, if you ever hear this article. I think the world does change, and I think you got to be careful in your valuation of anything. Anything that was valued, over the last 10 years, the lifetime value was X. Now and it doesn't work that way. So instead of the way legacy brands were built around a product and then given a personality, now we have the empowered self and the idea that a community exists. Now, on that note, we got to go over here to this article. And you can find all these articles, if you ask me, I think. I gave up on keeping it all straight. Marketers must step back from personalization and automation. Okay, and this is really big news. This was from the Ad Exchangers Industry Preview. So it's a little bit old. But what they were saying was that we don't trust the tech companies, we don't trust the agencies, and we don't trust the platforms, an overall breakdown in trust across the world. In marketing, the problem may be rooted in brands thinking of consumers as consumers. Yeah, as just consumers rather than your friends and neighbors and community. And I've been saying this for decades. People talk about CRM, customer relationship management. And I said, can you imagine if you said to your wife, well, your lifetime value is so great because you stay with me that I brought you flowers. Or I brought you flowers because I'm managing our relationship. You'll eat those flowers. It doesn't matter what you brought. If that's the reason you brought them, she doesn't want them. Well, my wife, I actually ran this by her, and she said, well, I would probably want the flowers, but I wouldn't want that to be the reason for the flowers. Okay? And so now we're getting regulation, and GDPR in the UK. Nigel Swaby tells me that the mailers are actually in pretty good shape because I can't remember, the CI, I think is the name of the person that makes these judgments, um, says that since you've been founded on mail and you've been doing this for decades, then you have a legitimate interest in recontacting customers that want you to recontact them. Obviously, they could have opted out all the way along the way, and they haven't. So perhaps they actually like what you're doing, right? Possible. It's possible. But as rightly pointed out here, legitimate GDPR states that consumer data controllers must have legitimate interest to lawfully possess consumer data. If they don't have consent, if you don't have explicit consent, and there's all kinds of potholes in consent because you have to ask a certain way, you have to re-ask every 2 years. It's very difficult to keep any data on the basis of consent. But the mailers are keeping it on the basis of legitimate interest. But here's the question. Here's the $100 question. Do advertisers ever really have legitimate interest? That's the question. And the article goes on to say anybody relying on legitimate interest to do audience-based advertising is putting themselves or their company at risk. Very, very serious stuff. And I was trying to relaunch a catalog, and the owner of the company wants to relaunch it. And the IT person basically said, looks to me like I'm not broadcasting. I'm going to try it again. It says I'm streaming, but I don't see anything streaming. Oh, here it comes. Yeah, there it is. Okay. The IT person said, we have names that are business to business names. They're just businesses, right? And we were told, well, you don't have the right to mail them. Well, they've done business with us. We have a relationship with them. And we had 200,000 names, and they said we only had the right to mail 3,000 of them. And she quit because she thought it was so offensive that we would think we could mail a catalog to a place of business, and it was so offensive. And all the way along, I've been working on this for 4 years, and all the way along, we finally did mail something. But it was poorly done, and I gave him all kinds of ideas, and no one listened. And it really boiled down to that overall, people in the company didn't think they had the right to do any advertising whatsoever, except in such very, very limited space. It wasn't email. I mean, it was, and so that's where we're headed. The millennials basically went on strike, undermined and sabotaged the entire adventure. And let's back up and say, hey, if you have 98% of the people you mail not responding, does your customer not opting out, not complaining, but not responding, then perhaps you don't have a legitimate interest. Now, in every other medium, it's higher than that. But advertising is the foundation of capitalism because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what new products are coming out. And so we have this devil's deal where we allow advertising in order to fund, new cell phone varieties and new media, which we'll talk about tomorrow, and a host of other things. And if we undermine the idea of advertising itself, then we've lost the ability to introduce new products, to innovate, and to find a need and fill it. Most people don't know they have the need for a smartphone or for a VCR or for any of the other, a car or any other technology that has been developed in the last century. I'm John Miglosh. Like and share. I hope it got you thinking. Have a great